Published in 1948, The Loved One, an Anglo-American Tragedy by English writer Evelyn Waugh, is a darkly comedic novel that satirizes both the Los Angeles funeral industry and the Hollywood film world. The story highlights the clash between British expatriates and Americans in a macabre yet humorous narrative featuring pet funerals and embalmed corpses. Waugh was inspired to write the book after visiting Forest Lawn Cemetery during a trip to Hollywood. In 1965, the novel was adapted into a film starring Robert Morse, Jonathan Winters, and Rod Steiger. Waugh's other well-known satirical works include Decline and Fall, 1928, and Vile Bodies, 1930, while his more serious works, such as Brideshead Revisited, 1945, focus on themes like religious faith and unconventional lifestyles. In The Loved One, Sir Francis Hinsley, a British expatriate and former chief scriptwriter at Megalopolitan Pictures, now works in the studio's publicity department. He shares his Los Angeles home with Dennis Barlow, a young British poet whose Hollywood career has faltered. Dennis originally came to write a script about Percy Bysshe Shelley, but now works at a pet mortuary called Happier Hunting Ground after his contract was cancelled. Sir Ambrose Abercrombie, a self-important British actor, visits and criticizes British expatriates for taking jobs beneath their status. After Ambrose leaves, Sir Francis agrees with his sentiment and chastises Dennis for his morbid work. Dennis soon leaves to retrieve the remains of a wealthy woman's dog, whose funeral will feature lavish extras like a dove release and an annual memorial card. Meanwhile, Sir Francis's own script is rejected, and he is abruptly fired after 25 years at the studio. Devastated, he takes his own life, recalling the fate of another colleague who died in similar circumstances. When Dennis discovers the body, he is initially startled but remains detached, a result of his wartime experiences. Dennis arranges Sir Francis's funeral at Whispering Glades, a mortuary known for its opulent services. While there, he meets a cosmetician named Aimée Thanatogenos, whose beauty and grace captivate him. Aimée is impressed by Dennis's poetic background, and they begin to bond. Aimée views her own work as an art form, though she regrets the temporary nature of her creations, which are soon buried or cremated. Meanwhile, the chief embalmer, Mr. Joyboy, secretly admires Aimée and takes pride in his ability to make corpses smile just to please her. Caught in a dilemma between two men, Aimée turns to spiritual advice columnist Guru Brahman for guidance. She confesses that, while she admires Mr. Joyboy, she doesn't feel romantically inclined toward him. However, she does have feelings for Dennis, despite disliking his British cynicism. Mr. Joyboy, eager to impress Aimée, informs her that he has recommended her to be the funeral home's first female embalmer and invites her to dinner that evening. When Aimée shares the news with Dennis, his proposal that the extra money from the promotion could allow them to marry strikes her as unromantic, leaving her upset. The dinner at Mr. Rang, Joyboy's home, doesn't go as Aimée had hoped. She spends most of the evening in uncomfortable conversations with his grumpy mother and her pet parrot. Aimée writes to Guru Brahman again, seeking more advice. The guru suggests that Mr. Joyboy may be the better option of her two suitors. However, Dennis sends Aimée a heartfelt poem that brings her to tears. The two meet at the Lover's Seat, a secluded spot at Whispering Glades, where they recite a Robert Burns love poem and share a kiss. That night, Aimée writes to both Mr. Joyboy and Guru Brahman, announcing her engagement to Dennis. Mr. Joyboy reacts poorly and seemingly withdraws his offer to make her an embalmer. To repair her relationship with Mr. Joyboy, Aimée leaves him a note explaining her feelings, along with one of Dennis's poems. Mr. Joyboy seems to soften and invites her to the Happier Hunting Ground for the funeral of his mother's parrot, which has recently died. Aimée accepts, but at the parrot's funeral, she discovers that Dennis works at the pet mortuary, which she considers a grotesque imitation of Whispering Glades. She feels betrayed and concludes that Dennis is a liar and a fraud. Aimée calls off her engagement with Dennis and becomes engaged to Mr. Joyboy instead. As her wedding day approaches, Dennis tells Aimée that his theological studies are progressing well and that they will soon be able to marry. Aimée rejects this idea, revealing that she is repulsed by him, especially after learning that the poems he sent her were not his own, but the work of long-dead poets. Dennis, in turn, accuses Aimée of being ignorant of literary classics. When Aimée expresses her disapproval of the open casket funeral for the parrot, Dennis defends Mr. Joyboy, explaining that he tried to dissuade him from having an open casket, as it only works well for dogs and cats. In the midst of her uncertainty, Aimée calls Mr. Joyboy to discuss their upcoming marriage. He brushes her off, saying he needs to stay with his mother, who has just acquired a new parrot. Desperate, Aimée turns to Guru Brahman once more. Having just been fired, the guru drunkenly advises her to jump from a tall building. Distraught, Aimée attempts to overdose on barbiturates and falls asleep. She wakes up, walks to Whispering Glades before dawn, and enters Mr. Joyboy's workroom. There, she injects herself with cyanide, apparently from Mr. Joyboy's embalming kit. When Mr. Joyboy informs Dennis of Aimée's death, Dennis sees an opportunity to exploit the embalmer's paranoia. Fearing he might be accused of killing Aimée, Mr. Joyboy is easily manipulated by Dennis, who offers to dispose of Aimée's body at the Happier Hunting Ground pet mortuary in exchange for funding his trip back to England. As Aimée's body is cremated in the pet mortuary, Dennis fills out paperwork for the Grade A service, listing Aimée as Mr. Joyboy's dog. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.